The sharp crack of bone against bone echoed in the gymnasium as Leo Whitman's head snapped backward, a spray of blood arcing through the air. He stumbled, his gloved hands instinctively rising to protect his face as his opponent, a stocky fighter with lightning-fast reflexes, pressed forward with another jab. Leo sidestepped, barely avoiding the blow, and countered with a hook that connected solidly with his opponent's ribs. The crowd roared its approval, the noise a distant buzz in Leo's ringing ears. "That's it, Leo. Keep your guard up," his coach shouted from the corner. Leo nodded, tasting the metallic tang of blood in his mouth. His tongue probed the loose tooth in the front of his mouth, another casualty of his boxing career. The bell rang, signaling the end of the round, and Leo retreated to his corner, spitting a mouthful of blood into a bucket. "You're doing great, kid," Coach Martinez said, pressing an ice pack against Leo's swelling cheekbone. "Just keep moving and don't let him corner you." Leo nodded, too winded to speak. His eyes drifted to the crowd, scanning the faces of the spectators. Most were the usual fight fans, but a group near the back caught his attention. They were tall, unusually tall, with oddly proportioned bodies and skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh gymnasium lights. Leo blinked, wondering if the punch he'd taken had affected his vision. "Who are those people in the back?" Leo asked, pointing with his glove. Coach Martinez glanced over his shoulder. "The exchange students? They're from that new international program. Some country I can't even pronounce. Focus, Leo. Bell's about to ring." The bell sounded, and Leo pushed the strange spectators from his mind as he moved back to the center of the ring. 3 more rounds. He just needed to survive 3 more rounds. 2 hours later, Leo sat in the locker room, holding an ice pack to his swollen jaw. The fight had ended in a split decision not in his favor. His body ached, and he knew tomorrow would be worse. 6 years of amateur boxing had taught him that much. "Excuse me." Leo looked up to see one of the tall figures from the audience standing in the doorway. Up close, the stranger was even more unusual, nearly 7 feet tall with a slender build, pale bluish skin, and large, wide-set eyes that were entirely black. His proportions were just slightly off, as if someone had stretched a human form in subtle ways. "Can I help you?" Leo asked, trying not to stare. The figure tilted its head. "Why are your teeth so uneven?" It asked in accented but clear English. Leo blinked in surprise. "Excuse me." 2 more of the strange figures appeared behind the first. They all had the same unusual features: the tall, slender build, the bluish skin, the black eyes. One of them, slightly shorter than the others, stepped forward. "We apologize for Zenix's directness," the shorter one said. "We are part of the exchange program from Proxima Centauri B. I am Tila, the cultural liaison. We observed your competition and have questions about human physiology." Leo stared at them, his mouth slightly open. "You're aliens?" Tila nodded. "Yes, though your government prefers interstellar visitors in public communications." Leo had heard rumors about the exchange program, everyone had, but he'd assumed it was just another international student initiative, not actual extraterrestrials. The news had mentioned something about diplomatic relations with a newly discovered civilization, but details had been sparse. The first alien Zenix pointed at Leo's mouth. "Your dental structure is irregular. Many humans here have this characteristic. Is this a natural feature?" Leo touched his mouth self-consciously. His front teeth were indeed crooked, with one incisor pushed slightly behind the others. His right canine was chipped, and there was a noticeable gap where he'd lost a premolar during a fight years ago. "That's boxing," Leo replied with a shrug. "You take enough hits to the face, and things stop being where they're supposed to be." The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. "You deliberately damage your dental structure as part of this ritual?" asked the third alien, who hadn't yet introduced itself. No, Leo said, wincing as he shifted the ice pack. "It's not deliberate. It's just a side effect. Boxing is a sport where we fight with our fists. Sometimes we get hit in the face. Teeth get knocked loose or broken. Yet you continue despite the physical damage." Tila asked, her head tilting in what Leo assumed was curiosity. Leo struggled to find an explanation that would make sense to beings from another star system. "It's complicated. It's about challenge, proving yourself, the adrenaline rush. Some do it for money, others for glory, or just because they love the sport. Fascinating, Zenix said, stepping closer to examine Leo's face. And your facial structure, the asymmetry, this is also from boxing? Leo nodded. Broken nose, twice. Fractured cheekbone once. It heals, but not always perfectly. Your species voluntarily engages in activities that cause permanent physical alterations, the third alien observed. This is unexpected. Maris is our medical specialist, Tila explained, gesturing to the third alien. We are studying human cultural practices as part of our exchange program. Leo stood up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Look, I'm happy to answer questions, but I need to shower and head home. It's been a long night. Would you be willing to speak with us further about this practice? Tila asked. Our assignment is to understand human recreational activities, and this, boxing, seems significant. Leo hesitated. He had training tomorrow, and his body needed rest. But how often did you get the chance to chat with actual aliens? Sure, I guess. There's a diner across the street. I could meet you there in 20 minutes. The aliens agreed, and Leo watched them exit the locker room with their strange, fluid gait. He shook his head in disbelief. First, he loses a fight, and now he's having coffee with aliens who are fascinated by his crooked teeth. What a night. 20 minutes later, Leo slid into a booth at Mel's diner, his hair still damp from the shower. The three aliens were already seated, drawing curious stares from the other patrons. The late-night crowd at Mel's had seen plenty of oddities over the years, but interstellar visitors were apparently still novel enough to warrant attention. Sorry to keep you waiting, Leo said, signaling to the waitress for coffee. We were observing human nocturnal eating habits, Maris explained, gesturing to the nearly empty diner. Your species consumes nutrients at irregular intervals. Leo smiled despite his sore jaw. Yeah, I guess we do. The waitress approached, eyeing the aliens with undisguised curiosity as she set down Leo's coffee. Anything for your friends. Water would be acceptable, Tila said. After the waitress left, Zenix leaned forward. Please explain more about boxing. Our cultural briefing mentioned many human sports, but boxing was only described as regulated combat. Leo stirred sugar into his coffee. That's pretty accurate, actually. 2 fighters, padded gloves, specific rules about where and how you can hit. The goal is to either score more points by landing clean hits or to knock your opponent out. Knockout, Maris asked. You mean render them unconscious through trauma to the brain? Put that way, it did sound barbaric. Yeah, essentially. Though most amateur fights like mine are scored on points, not knockouts. And humans find this entertaining, Tila asked. Some do. Others find it brutal, Leo admitted. Boxing has a complicated history. It's been around for thousands of years in one form or another. What draws you to this activity? Zenix asked. The physical risk seems significant. Leo paused, considering the question. Why did he box? It had started as a way to channel his teenage aggression, then became a source of discipline and purpose when he needed it most. I like the challenge, he said finally. There's something pure about it, just you and your opponent, your skills against theirs. No equipment, no team to rely on. Just your training, your strategy, and your heart. Heart? Maris asked, looking confused. You refer to the muscular organ that pumps blood? Leo laughed, then winced at the pain in his ribs. No, it's a figure of speech. Heart means courage, determination, will. Ah, Tila said, making a note on a small device she pulled from her pocket. Metaphorical language. We were briefed about this. The waitress returned with waters for the aliens. She hovered for a moment, clearly hoping to overhear something interesting, before reluctantly moving to another table. May I? Maris asked, gesturing toward Leo's face. I would like to observe the damage more closely. Leo hesitated, then nodded. The alien leaned forward, examining Leo's features with those unnerving black eyes. Its fingers, longer and more jointed than human fingers, hovered near Leo's jaw without touching. Remarkable. The bone has remodeled after multiple traumas, Maris said. And you can still consume solid nutrients despite the dental irregularities? Yeah, I can still eat just fine, Leo said, feeling self-conscious. The teeth are cosmetic, mostly. I could get them fixed if I wanted to spend the money. Yet you choose not to, Zenix observed. Is this a status marker among boxers? A sign of experience? Leo had never thought about it that way. I guess some might see it that way. Battle scars and all that. But mostly it's just not a priority. On our world, physical perfection is highly valued, Tila explained. Voluntary activities that risk permanent alteration would be considered irrational. Different cultures, different values, Leo said with a shrug. Humans have a complicated relationship with physical risk. Some avoid it entirely, others seek it out. This diversity is what makes your species so interesting to study, Tila said. As the night progressed, Leo found himself explaining not just boxing but human sports in general, the concept of recreational risk-taking, and even the basics of human dental care. The aliens were attentive listeners, asking thoughtful questions that often made Leo reconsider aspects of human behavior he'd always taken for granted. So tomorrow you will return to training despite your injuries? Maris asked, looking concerned. Light training, Leo clarified. Roadwork running, and some technique drills. Nothing that will make the injuries worse. And when will you engage in this boxing again? Zenik asked. Not for at least 6 weeks. My coach is strict about recovery time. Tila made another note on her device. Would it be permissible for us to observe your training? Our assignment requires comprehensive documentation. Leo considered the request. Having aliens watch him train would certainly make for an interesting session. Coach Martinez might not be thrilled, but he'd probably get over it. Sure, why not? Leo said. Meet me at East Side Gym tomorrow at 4. The aliens seemed pleased with this arrangement. As they prepared to leave, Tila handed Leo a small card with contact information. If you have questions about our species or our mission, you may reach us here. Leo pocketed the card, still somewhat stunned by the evening's turn of events. This has been educational, he said, not knowing how else to describe their conversation. Indeed, Tila agreed. We look forward to continuing our observations tomorrow. As Leo watched the aliens glide out of the diner, their tall forms drawing stares from everyone they passed, he couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. Coach Martinez was going to have a field day with this. The next day, Leo arrived at East Side Gym feeling every punch from the previous night. His ribs ached with each breath, and his jaw throbbed despite the painkillers he'd taken. Coach Martinez was already there, wrapping the hands of a younger fighter. You look like hell, Martinez observed as Leo dropped his gym bag on a bench. Thanks, coach. Always know how to make a guy feel better. Martinez finished with the hand wraps and sent the young fighter to warm up. Split decisions are tough, kid. You fought well. Leo nodded, not wanting to dwell on the loss. Listen, coach, we're going to have some unusual visitors today. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Unusual how? Before Leo could explain, the gym door opened, and the 3 aliens entered. They had traded their formal attire from the previous night for what appeared to be an attempt at Earth casual, where though the proportions were slightly off, giving them the look of beings who had studied human fashion through a slightly warped lens. The gym went silent. Even the rhythmic sound of punching bags stopped as everyone turned to stare at the newcomers. Those kinds of unusual, Leo said. Martinez's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. Are they Proxima Centauri exchange students? Leo confirmed. They're studying human recreational activities. They saw my fight last night and got interested in boxing. The coach ran a hand through his thinning hair. Jesus, Leo. When you said unusual visitors, I thought maybe you meant talent scouts or something. Leo shrugged apologetically as the aliens approached. Sorry, coach. I didn't know how to explain it over the phone. Hello, Coach Martinez, Tila said, extending a long-fingered hand. We are grateful for the opportunity to observe your training methods. Martinez shook the alien's hand automatically, his expression a mixture of shock and curiosity. Welcome to East Side Gym. Just try not to disturb the fighters, okay? We will be unobtrusive, Tila promised. While Tila spoke with the coach, Zenik and Maris wandered around the gym, observing the various activities with undisguised interest. The other fighters tried to continue their routines, but most were openly staring at the extraterrestrial visitors. All right, Leo, Martinez said, regaining his composure. Light roadwork today. 3 miles, easy pace. Then we'll do some technique work, no sparring until those ribs heal. Leo nodded and began his warm-up stretches. The aliens watched with interest as he moved through his routine. The preparatory movements serve what function? Maris asked. Prevents injury, Leo explained between stretches. Warms up the muscles and joints before putting them under stress. Maris made a note on her device. Logical. Your species has fragile connective tissues compared to ours. Leo wasn't sure whether to be offended or fascinated by this observation. What's your physiology like? He asked, genuinely curious. Our skeletal structure is partially cartilaginous, Maris explained. It allows for greater flexibility and resistance to impact. So you'd make good boxers, Leo said with a smile. Perhaps, Maris replied, though our cultural aversion to physical damage would make participation unlikely. After completing his warm-up, Leo headed out for his run, with Zenith accompanying him while the others remained at the gym to observe the other fighters. Despite his injuries, Leo found himself pushing a bit harder than he should have, aware of the alien scrutiny. Your respiration rate is elevated, Zenith observed as they jogged. Is this optimal? Leo slowed his pace slightly. No, I should pace myself better, especially when I'm recovering. Why do you increase exertion when being observed? Zenith asked. Is this a social dominance display? Leo laughed, then winced at the pain in his ribs. Something like that. Humans don't like to appear weak in front of others. Even when displaying accurate limitations would be more rational. Especially then, Leo confirmed. When they returned to the gym, Leo found Tila deep in conversation with Coach Martinez, who seemed to have overcome his initial shock and was now enthusiastically explaining the finer points of boxing technique. Maris was examining the gym's first aid station with interest. Your coach is very knowledgeable, Tila told Leo. He has been explaining the historical development of your sport. Yeah, coach is a walking boxing encyclopedia, Leo agreed, grabbing a towel to wipe the sweat from his face. Been in the game for 40 years. Martinez waved Leo over to the heavy bag. All right, kid, let's work on your technique. Those rights were dropping too low last night. For the next hour, Leo worked on footwork and punching technique, with Martinez making corrections and the aliens observing intently. Other fighters gradually overcame their curiosity and returned to their own training, though occasional glances were still thrown toward the visitors. Why does he strike with the dorsal aspect of the phalanges rather than the tips? Maris asked Martinez, watching Leo hit the heavy bag. Because he'd break his fingers that way, Martinez explained. Boxing gloves protect the knuckles, but you still need proper technique to prevent injury. And these wrappings? Maris gestured to Leo's hand wraps. Stabilize the wrist and knuckles, Martinez said. Want to try it? To Leo's surprise, Maris nodded. Martinez expertly wrapped the alien's hands, adjusting for the longer fingers and different joint structure. Now, let me show you the basic stance. Soon, Maris was throwing tentative punches at a pad Martinez held up, while Tila and Zenith watched with what Leo interpreted as alarm. Maris, is this wise? Tila asked. The cultural directive specifically discourages physical participation in potentially harmful activities. I am gathering experiential data, Maris replied, throwing another careful jab. The kinesthetic understanding will enhance our report. Leo watched with amusement as the medical specialist gradually became more comfortable with the movements, eventually throwing combinations under Martinez's instruction. Not bad, the coach said. You've got good natural reach, though your center of gravity is different from ours. Makes your footwork a bit awkward. After the impromptu lesson, the aliens gathered to confer among themselves, speaking in their native language a series of clicking sounds and tonal shifts that Leo couldn't begin to interpret. They're an interesting bunch, Martinez said quietly to Leo as they watched the aliens' discussion. Asked a lot of good questions about the neurological impact of boxing. Made me think about some things I usually don't consider. Yeah, they've got a way of making the familiar seem strange, Leo agreed. The aliens concluded their discussion and approached Leo and the coach. We have a proposal, Tila announced. Our mission requires comprehensive understanding of cultural practices. We would like to document your recovery and training process over the next several weeks, culminating in observation of your next competition. Leo glanced at Martinez, who shrugged. Up to you, kid. What would this involve exactly? Leo asked. Regular observation sessions, Tila explained. Documentation of your training methods, nutritional practices, and physical recovery. We would also like to conduct interviews about your psychological approach to the sport. Like a documentary? Leo asked. Similar, though for educational rather than entertainment purposes, Tila confirmed. Our findings will contribute to the Proxima Centauri cultural database on Earth species. Leo considered the offer. Having aliens follow him around for weeks would certainly be disruptive, but also fascinating. And how many boxers could say they've been featured in an alien cultural database? All right, he said finally. But I have conditions. You can't interfere with my training or recovery. And if coach says you need to step back, you step back, no questions asked. Acceptable terms, Tila agreed. Over the next 6 weeks, Leo's life took on a surreal quality as the aliens became regular fixtures at his training sessions. They observed his road work, his strength training, his sparring when he was cleared to return to it, and even his nutritional habits. Leo found himself explaining concepts he'd never fully articulated before: the mental aspects of fighting, the discipline required to maintain weight, the balance between aggression and control. The aliens, in turn, shared information about their own world and culture. Leo learned that Proxima Centauri b had lower gravity than Earth, which accounted for the aliens' height and slender build. Their society placed high value on intellectual pursuits and artistic expression, with physical competitions focusing on precision and skill rather than force or impact. Your sport would be considered barbaric by many of our people, Zenith admitted during one conversation. But I have come to appreciate its complexity and the skill involved. It's considered barbaric by plenty of humans too, Leo pointed out. It's a controversial sport, always has been. As his next fight approached, Leo found himself unusually reflective about his chosen sport. The aliens' questions had forced him to examine aspects of boxing he'd always taken for granted: the physical toll, the cultural significance, even the ethical dimensions. Do you ever consider the long-term neurological impact? Maris asked him one day after a particularly intense sparring session. Leo toweled off his sweat before answering. Sure, every boxer does. You try not to think about it too much, but it's always there in the back of your mind. Yet you continue despite the documented risks. It's a calculated risk, Leo said. Like a lot of things humans do. Driving cars, climbing mountains, falling in love. The potential reward outweighs the potential cost, at least from my perspective. Maris seemed to consider this deeply. Your species has a fascinating relationship with risk assessment. The night of Leo's fight arrived with unusual fanfare. Word had spread about the alien observers, and the small community gymnasium was packed with spectators, many of whom seemed more interested in catching a glimpse of the extraterrestrials than watching the boxing. In the locker room, Leo tried to focus on his pre-fight routine, but his mind kept drifting to the conversations he'd had with Tila, Zenith, and Maris over the past weeks. Their perspective had changed something in him, not enough to make him question his love for boxing, but enough to make him more conscious of what the sport meant to him and why he continued despite the risks. You ready, kid? Coach Martinez asked, interrupting Leo's thoughts. Leo nodded, rolling his shoulders to loosen them. Ready as I'll ever be. Your alien friends are causing quite a stir out there, Martinez said with a chuckle. Never seen this place so packed for an amateur card. Great, no pressure, Leo muttered. Martinez clapped him on the shoulder. Just fight your fight. Forget about the crowd, forget about the aliens. It's just you and him in that ring. Leo nodded, taking a deep breath. His opponent tonight was a fighter he'd faced once before, a technical boxer with quick hands, but less power than the man who'd broken his ribs 6 weeks earlier. Leo had lost their previous encounter by decision, but he'd studied the footage extensively and believed he had the strategy to win this time. As he made his way to the ring, Leo spotted the aliens in the front row. They stood out not just because of their height and appearance, but because of their intense focus amid the noisy, chaotic atmosphere of the boxing venue. Tila gave him what appeared to be a thumbs up, a human gesture they'd obviously learned during their time on Earth. The introductions were made. The referee gave his instructions, and then the bell rang. Leo moved forward, his mind clearing as it always did once the fight began. This was the moment when all the training, all the preparation, all the sacrifice either paid off or didn't. There was a purity to it that Leo had never been able to adequately explain to the aliens, despite their endless questions. The first round was cautious, both fighters feeling each other out. Leo landed a solid jab-cross combination that seemed to surprise his opponent, who had perhaps been expecting the same fighter he'd faced before. In the corner between rounds, Martinez was pleased. Good work, Leo. He's not expecting you to be so aggressive. Keep it up, but don't get reckless. The second round saw more exchanges, with Leo taking a hard hook to the body but landing several clean shots of his own. By the third round, Leo could feel the fight turning in his favor. His opponent was becoming predictable, falling into patterns that Leo had identified in their previous bout. In the fourth round, Leo saw his opening. His opponent threw a lazy jab, dropping his right hand slightly as he did so. Leo slipped the jab and countered with a left hook that connected solidly with his opponent's jaw. The man staggered, and Leo followed with a straight right that sent him to the canvas. The referee began the count. Leo moved to a neutral corner, his heart pounding. The crowd was on its feet, the noise deafening. At the count of 8, his opponent struggled to his feet, but his eyes were unfocused. The referee took one look at him and waved his arms, ending the fight. Leo had won by technical knockout, his first in over a year. The crowd erupted, and Coach Martinez rushed into the ring, lifting Leo's arm in victory. Through the chaos, Leo could see the aliens watching intently, their expressions unreadable. Later, after the post-fight medical check and a quick shower, Leo found the aliens waiting for him outside the locker room. That was most informative, Tila said. The conclusion of your contest was decisive. Leo smiled despite his exhaustion. That's one way to put it. Your technique has improved significantly since our first observation, Zinnik noted. The pattern recognition and counter strategy were evident. Thanks, Leo said, touched by what he took as a compliment. Having you guys around actually helped. Made me think more about what I was doing and why. Maris stepped forward, scanning Leo with some kind of device. Your injuries are minimal compared to your previous contest. Primarily superficial contusions and minor strain to the intercostal muscles. Yeah, I feel pretty good, Leo agreed. Taking that full recovery time helped. They made their way to the parking lot, where Coach Martinez was waiting by his car. Great fight, kid, the coach said, giving Leo a careful hug that avoided his sore ribs. Smart and disciplined. That's what I've been trying to drill into you. I had good teachers, Leo said, glancing at the aliens. All of you. Martinez snorted. Don't give them too much credit. I'm the one who's been putting up with you for 6 years. We found your insights invaluable as well, Coach Martinez, Tila said formally. Our understanding of human competitive practices has been greatly enhanced. Happy to help, Martinez said, still somewhat awkward around the extraterrestrials despite weeks of interaction. You folks need a ride somewhere? We have transportation arranged, Tila said. But we would like a moment with Leo first, if that's acceptable. Martinez nodded. Sure thing. Leo, don't stay out too late. Recovery starts now. After the coach left, the aliens turned to Leo with what seemed like unusual solemnity. Our observation period concludes tomorrow, Tila announced. We will be returning to our primary research facility to compile our findings. Leo was surprised by the pang of disappointment he felt. So soon? I thought you were here for a longer exchange program. Different research teams have different time frames, Zinnik explained. Our cultural study was scheduled for 8 Earth weeks. We wanted to express our gratitude for your cooperation, Tila continued. Your willingness to explain and demonstrate aspects of boxing culture has been invaluable to our research. It was interesting for me too, Leo said honestly. Made me think about things differently. Maris stepped forward, holding out a small device. We have prepared a translation of our preliminary findings for you. It contains our analysis of boxing as a cultural practice, including comparative notes on physical competition across Earth cultures. Leo took the device, touched by the gesture. Thank you. I'll definitely read it. There is also a section on dental and facial structural variances in boxers, Maris added. Since that was our initial point of interest. Leo laughed, remembering their first meeting and the blunt question about his uneven teeth. Full circle, huh? We have come to understand that the physical markers of boxing, the dental irregularities, the facial asymmetry, are viewed within your subculture as signs of experience rather than imperfections, Tila said. This perspective has been enlightening. Different cultures, different values, Leo said, echoing his words from their first conversation. Indeed, Tila agreed. Though we have also observed universal constants, the pursuit of excellence, the testing of limitations, the social bonds formed through shared challenge. They stood in silence for a moment, an unlikely group brought together by curiosity and circumstance. Will you continue boxing? Maris asked finally. Leo thought about the question. 6 weeks ago, he might have answered automatically. Now, having examined his sport through alien eyes, his answer was more considered. Yes, he said, but maybe with a better understanding of why, and with more attention to the long-term impacts. The aliens seemed satisfied with this response. They extended their hands in the human gesture of farewell that they had learned. We wish you success in your future competitions, Leo Whitman, Tila said formally. And minimal dental and facial alterations, Zenith added, with what Leo interpreted as an attempt at humor. Leo shook their hands, still marveling at the strange twist his life had taken. Good luck with your research. And if you ever come back to Earth, look me up. Maybe by then I'll have fixed my teeth. That would be unfortunate, Maris said seriously. They tell a story that perfect dentition could not. With that unexpected insight, the aliens departed, their tall forms gliding across the parking lot toward a waiting vehicle with government markings. Leo watched them go, absently running his tongue over his uneven teeth, the physical record of his journey in boxing. Teeth that had prompted an unusual question from visitors from another world, leading to connections and understandings he never could have anticipated. That's boxing, he murmured to himself with a smile. Not just the sport, but everything that came with it, the unexpected paths, the strange encounters, the lessons learned both in and out of the ring. Leo pocketed the alien device and headed for home, already thinking about tomorrow's recovery session and the fights that lay ahead. His body ached, his face was swollen, and somewhere in the vast database of an alien civilization, his crooked teeth would be documented as a cultural phenomenon of Earth. The thought made him laugh despite his sore ribs. Life was strange and wonderful, full of unexpected connections not unlike boxing itself. You stepped into the ring never quite knowing what would happen, but always ready to learn, adapt, and grow from the experience. And sometimes, that experience included explaining your uneven teeth to curious beings from another star. 6 months later, Leo sat in his apartment, staring at the small device the aliens had given him. He'd read their analysis multiple times, fascinated by their perspective on boxing and human competitive sports in general. Their observations had influenced his approach to training and even led him to take college courses in sports psychology and human physiology. His recent fights had gone well, 3 wins and 1 loss, and he was starting to be mentioned as a potential contender for regional titles. Coach Martinez attributed the improvement to Leo's more analytical approach to the sport, though he still complained about those aliens filling your head with overthinking. Leo was about to put the device away when it suddenly activated, projecting a holographic image into his living room. Tila's familiar form appeared, looking much the same as when he'd last seen her. Greetings, Leo Whitman, the projection said. If you are receiving this message, our research team has received approval for a follow-up study on human competitive practices. We will be returning to Earth next month and would welcome the opportunity to continue our observations of your boxing career. Leo smiled, his tongue automatically finding the gap where his premolar had once been the gap that had prompted a question from curious aliens and changed the course of his life in unexpected ways. That's boxing, he said to the empty room. Always full of surprises.